historically, a lot of the mine waste was dumped into the river just to get rid of it, so that they didn't have to haul it away or whatever. And that water was often contaminated with cadmium and zinc, heavy metals, which is toxic to aquatic life.
The river at this time of year in the spring years, in the late 1960s, this time of year would run orange with the pollution that came down from the runoff, and it was a very sad sight. There were some concerns about airborne pollution from the mining, the dust from the mining areas being breathed by the neighbors, and they thought that might have had an effect on cancer levels.
Well, there are a lot of minerals that exist in the water and often are dissolved in the water that humans require to stay healthy. One of the problems that happens is that when you have different industries or other things that are added to the water, the levels of some of those minerals or metals or parameters in the water can get to be too high.
We have enough clean water here that we are able to have our drinking supply separate and apart from the pollution that used to be in the river.
Humans, wildlife need a little bit of selenium to stay healthy, but if there's too much selenium, it can be poisonous to you. So we know those levels that are safe. We know how much we need, we know how much is too much, and that's what we watch for in the water to make sure that it doesn't get to be too much of any of those different pollutants. Especially since the 1970s in what we call the Federal Clean Water Act. That's where it really became necessary and required to treat any discharges of wastewater back to the stream. In doing that, they have certain levels that they have to meet from different industries, from mining, from wastewater treatment plants, domestic wastewater treatment plants. And in mining, a lot of it is removing metals. That's the bulk of the problem from the mining industry.
So some of the earliest water rights in Colorado were mining water rights, and that's how the prior appropriation system became in existence. It's a first in time, first in right. And so the initial water rights were initiated when mining companies started to appropriate water. They used that water in their milling process.
Cities and businesses in our state and in the United States hold permits called discharge permits so they can put the water back into the stream. And it's very, very necessary that water go back to the stream because those downstream need to use the water. You shouldn't be just evaporating it. So you have to clean it up.
It was my job when I worked in Vail to begin to figure out what to do with that. And what we did was to take sewerage out of the sewer treatment plant that had been treated and disinfected, put it on the heavy metals that then leached a lot of the heavy metals out, but it allowed grass to grow. Since then, the federal government passed many, many rules, and they caused all of that pollution, all that polluted soil to be moved and put in one place and then covered over with wells down in to pump out the water and treat it.
Every year we have a plan, and that's in our group that we work with. We collect water samples from around the state every year. Probably this year, on average, we collect 900 to 1,000 different samples around the state, send those to a laboratory for analysis, And that's how we determine kind of the status of the water that we have around the state. We also compare the results that we have to different levels that are considered to be protective.
Now, 100 years ago, that was not the law in Colorado, and of course, the world knows that Colorado was developed because of the gold and silver. That's when the non-Indian population came into this state. Well, we had 100 years of these mining operations polluting the stream. Well, people couldn't use the water for agriculture or for drinking water. So we instituted this system of control to make sure that before the water is returned to the stream, it's cleaned up to suitable levels. But the government can fine dischargers who pollute the stream more than they're allowed to. They could be put in jail. They could be fined amount of money. They will be ordered to stop doing it. So that's what our courts do. And that's what our Water Quality Control Commission does. They have the power to fine these businesses, to fine these communities, go into court, and get the pollution stopped.
The wildlife, however, the fish, were killed by the pollution, and they had very low levels of fish population, and since the rivers have been cleaned up, the fish have been coming back. But it means that where people live is clean. It's not filthy. And their whole life then, and their expectations about having and living in a beautiful environment, which we value very much in Colorado. That's the reason we all live here, that helps our economy, it helps our attitudes towards each other, and it makes us feel much more in tune with nature.